Alrighty, everybody, it looks like it is about that time. Just we'll give it a quick second for everybody to pile in here. But anybody in the chat so far, I'd really appreciate it if you could just give me a confirmation that the audio is coming through nice and clear. It looks and appears to be, so I think we should be golden. But before we dive in, I just want to make sure that y'all can hear me before we jump in today. And also, if it looks like I'm looking away from the screen, it's because I'm looking at the chat to see what all of you wonderful people are saying. So, first and foremost, guys, just wanted to briefly introduce myself. My name is Sam Jameson with the Eventbrite Boost customer experience team. And over the past 4 years, I've had the pleasure of working with tons of different event creators of all different types of events, all different sizes of events, to help empower you to bring people together using the power of paid marketing to better promote your events. And first and foremost, I just want to start off by saying thank you for being here today. We know your time is extremely valuable as event creators. You have tons and tons of different things going on your plate, and it really means a lot that you're spending your time here with us today. You hear us? I think the audio should be coming through, Brandon. Question mark? It's me. Anybody else in the chat? The audio coming through all right? Brandon, just double check that you don't potentially have the YouTube thing muted, because audio looks like it's coming through on my end. Audio's good. Beth, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And y'all, I'd love to know too where you are actually listening in from today. So thank you very much for taking the time. Again, we know all of you as event creators have tons and tons of different things on your plate. And in all honesty, probably a lot of us would rather be at happy hour or somewhere at the beach right now than listening to a little bit of marketing. So I just wanted to thank you for spending your time here with us today. I always love for these sessions to be interactive. So please, if I'm going a little bit too quick, you'd like a little bit better clarification on something, there's, maybe something that we could dive into, I would love for you to just, take a second, let me know in the chat, as ultimately I just want to make sure that you are walking away feeling empowered with education, and the fact that you're showing up here today means that you are here for education. So just wanted to thank you very much. So just before we jump in, to give you a little bit of a brief agenda, agendas are always open to change if there are things that you would like to learn a little bit about today that we can cover. But starting off with a brief overview of, what exactly is Eventbrite Boost, and how would I market my events with Facebook and Instagram advertising? What are basically the main factors that contribute to the performance of our ad campaigns that we are actively running, and how can we mirror the success of other individual very powerful advertisers for our events? So pretty much we'll be giving you kind of a brief walkthrough, showing you some examples of some of the most powerful event creators and what exactly they're doing, and showing you exactly how to mirror that and accomplish those same types of campaigns for your business. And then if we have a little bit time left at the end, we can definitely do a little QA, or maybe dive a little bit deeper into auditing, whatever is your preference here today. So just diving in, we just first and foremost want to acknowledge that, event marketing really doesn't have to be hard. For a lot of us, myself included, just to give you a little context, when I first started marketing, I was working in a 1350 cap venue, the UC Theater up in Berkeley, California. And I actually started as the photography intern, and they needed somebody to actually start handling a little bit of paid marketing. And I used this exact tool actually, without a ton of experience prior, to then successfully run ads within a venue. So I don't want you to feel intimidated if marketing previously in the past has really felt like a challenge for you, as I know you can do it, as I've been there myself before. And a lot of times, when we are working with advertising our events, sometimes it just feels like we're just trying to squeeze that lemon to get as much juice out of it as we possibly can. A lot of us don't have, multi-million dollar marketing budgets to work with. We might have a very limited amount. So how can we have those dollars stretched the furthest to actually help bring people together? And a few of the most common reasons, why we've seen, or personally why I feel marketing is very intimidating to a lot of us, is, platforms like Facebook Ads Manager were designed for somebody over at Coca-Cola, Harvard MBA, tons and tons of experience previously in the past. And a lot of times those tools sometimes can be too complex, too expensive, or not specific to us within the events industry. And oftentimes we know you as event creators have so many things in your job description that aren't in your job description that you're effectively doing every day. So even if we want to maybe do something like Facebook Blueprint, or take the time to take a Udemy course or something like that, we just might not have a lot of time to dedicate to learning the skills or tools for marketing. And then once we take that step even a little bit further into the pool, a lot of times we might be looking at our results of our campaigns, and it might be like a foreign language to us actually trying to make sense of, how did our ad dollars actually translate to meaningful results for our events that we are marketing. So to give you a little bit of context, what Eventbrite Boost is, for some of you maybe Eventbrite creators that have been on the platform long term and some of the new faces as well today, what we've done is we've created an all in one marketing platform that has free solutions and both paid solutions depending on your budget, your organization, and your types of events to help you be able to market all of your events within one nice and easy place, pulling together the power of things like Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising, all into one that you can find within your Eventbrite dashboard. And to just briefly give you a little context of where you can even find this, Brandon, we can hear you in the chat. It's definitely coming in here. For the YouTube audio, you might just want to double check that potentially it's not muted on your computer or your audio output is set to the correct setting, or it could be muted on YouTube. Those probably would be the three things that I would guess here. Oh, but you can't hear that as well. Let me type that in the chat. Take one quick second to help our friend Brandon out here today. Perfect. So once we've got that in there, just to let y'all know exactly, where you'll find this within the platform, once you go to the Manage My Events section where you normally view the events that you've created, you're going to see this marketing tab up in the top left-hand corner. And many kind of products that you might already be familiar with if you've been a long-time Eventbrite creator are kind of already in this section. So first and foremost, I'd just like to briefly talk about the Add Your Event to Facebook feature, as if you haven't been using this feature, if there's one kind of good takeaway that I could give you of something free, very it doesn't take a lot of time to actually do, it would be to start leveraging the Add Your Event to Facebook feature. And the way that this works is you're simply, once you've created an Eventbrite event, you need to go ahead and basically uh, need to be linked up here. Uh, so basically, this is a tool that allows you to publish your Eventbrite event over to Facebook. And the benefit of that is basically once you have a Facebook event created, individuals can start hitting interested or going or RSVPing to your event. It's a really powerful mechanism to actually, just make sure that your event's getting in front of a ton of eyes. Once your event gets traction, Facebook will help organically promote that to new individuals as well. And it's a great way for individuals to also purchase tickets, as it's almost just as easy using the embedded checkout for somebody to buy a ticket within the Facebook event as it would be to send them directly over to your eventbrite.com website. So if there's any takeaway I could give y'all today, definitely make sure you're using that Add Your Event to Facebook feature. It's probably one of the easiest and simple things you could be doing. And we'll talk a little bit about later of why these events are essentially important for when it comes to a paid marketing or paid advertising perspective. And briefly talking about the email campaign feature, another free tool that you can use in Eventbrite to hit your prospects, hit your past customers, just notifying them about email campaigns. And then once we have the main thing that we would want to be talking about today is the advertise on Facebook and Instagram feature. So that's going to be the main thing that we're going to dive into. And Brandon, if you're having audio troubles, you can always watch this VOD on review 2 as well in this section. So let's basically jump in and take a look at some successful campaigns here within this area. So right now, y'all are looking at the Eventbrite Boost platform and a successful ad campaign run by one of our customers, Cream Events, out in New Zealand. This was a campaign that they were running to help promote that Facebook event. So why I spent a little bit of time talking about Facebook events is, if you use that tool to publish your event to Facebook, it's one of the most powerful things that you can be leveraging from an ad campaign perspective, especially if you are marketing to individuals that might not be ready to purchase to your events right away. They might need a little bit of time. It's a great way that you can retain interest while still keeping your event in front of people so they don't effectively forget about it. So this campaign that they were running was for one of their upcoming festivals. The festival was still a while out, so if we kind of took a step back and might have put our position in their buyer's shoes, we might not have wanted to purchase a ticket right away. The event's maybe a while out. We don't think it's actually going to be, we don't think the event's going to sell out or anything like that. So Facebook RSVP campaigns are a fantastic mechanism for you to use for promotion. So let's kind of dive into some of the results and to just kind of give you a brief overview of what the interface looks like right here. So within this section that we have right here, we're normally trying to show the metrics that are actually most important for your campaign that sometimes can be hard to find in Ads Manager if you're leveraging a platform like that. Within this section, basically we're showing you, okay, if your campaign helped drive sales, how much did you spend and how much did you make back? So this creator here actually got a 20x return on ad spend with their campaign, which is actually pretty crazy. So if you're not getting quite the exact same return on ad spend here within this section, it's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. Brandon, let's keep things appropriate for the chat here too as well. Just want to make sure that everything is going all right here. Cool. So then diving into this as well, we're generally trying to show you, how many people have we reached? How many people did you actually get into your retargeting audiences that might be more likely to purchase a little bit later on down the road? And then also, kind of what was the spend, total purchase value, the amount of RSVPs, and then also, what was the return on ad spend that we had here in this section. Perfect. And dive in a little bit lower. We'll also try to give you a breakdown of the target audiences within the campaign. So basically, we're just trying to show you, okay, how much was spent on each of these audiences, what did this translate in terms of results? And scrolling down a little bit further as well, this is the creative performance here. So basically, if you're testing out a couple different creatives, it's showing you, which creatives actually ended up performing the best for your ad that you were running. So what I really, really like about this campaign is, this creator did a really, really good job of, not only running the right campaign at the right time, they were A/B testing multiple audiences, so kind of keeping things diversified as well. And then they were using, a really good visually kind of appealing creative here. So I'd like to take a little bit of time today to actually dive in to show you how to create these. So let me switch up my account here, and also I would love for some of you to let me know, what types of events are you running today, so we can give you a little bit of an example of, what types of target audiences might be best here. Perfect. So let's go to first the event strategy section here, just to kind of give you a brief, view of exactly what you are going to be looking at when you kind of first hop into the platform. So Beth, you are doing most nonprofit events. What type of nonprofit events are you running to? Would just any extra context just generally helps give me kind of a better picture of what your events are about, and then what you could be doing to promote them as well. So normally once you first hop in the platform, you're going to see this kind of interesting looking graph that we have right here. This is something that we call the sales curve, and it's actually a piece of technology that we've built out that basically helps plot how your customers on average actually purchase and register for your events that you're actually running. Awesome. So Surf Park, you're running a virtual cooking class. That's freaking awesome. Drew, you're running a comedy show. Do we have any concert folks within here today as well? Yeah, anybody, feel free. Any point down the road, we'll get to the targeting stuff a little later on down. So if you're running a little late, feel free to let me know. No worries whatsoever. So basically, what we're trying to show you here is, when are your customers actually purchasing and when are they registering for your upcoming events? It literally is half the battle in terms of, running a successful ad campaign is really trying to understand and put yourself in the position of your customer and understand, if I was going to be buying for this event right now, would I be likely to purchase right now? Is the event 3 months out and I don't think it's going to sell out? Why would I maybe engage with that ad right now, when I can just think I might purchase it a week before, something like that? So half the battle is really just trying to figure out, when are your customers purchasing? And based on when they're purchasing, what type of campaign should we be running to best suit the current situation? So what we've tried to do here is actually create something that all you have to do is select your upcoming Eventbrite event. And then based on how your customers normally purchase for your events, we'll recommend what campaign we should which campaign we think you should run based on our findings and our technology. But I also would love to give you, as we jump into this as well, a little bit of context about why we suggest the specific campaigns. So we will give you a recommended objective here and try to give you a little, brief context about, why we think you should run this. But you can also customize these options, and I'd love to just take a quick sec to give you a little bit more context. Awesome, Beth. Normally fundraising for events like a golf outing. We got Devin in here as well. Marketing entertainment for a rural casino. Awesome. We got a good, diverse group of event promoters in here today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time, Devin and Beth. So basically, the first step of creating a campaign is choosing, what's the objective that we want to be running here? So the first objective that we have, if you are familiar with maybe the Facebook lingo or done Facebook advertising before, sometimes referred to as like a link click or conversion ad. It's just a fancy word for saying we're running an ad campaign that normally sends people straight to your Eventbrite.com ticketing pages, or we're sending them to somewhere on your website, normally the easiest spot for them to actually go ahead and purchase those tickets. Now, these campaigns are best to run whenever you are in a timing period where your customers actually have urgency to purchase. If we blow all of our budget on this type of campaign when our event is multiple months out, our customers don't even normally purchase in this period, we're probably going to see some pretty bad results simply because we didn't run the right type of campaign for our event. So, for a little bit of an example, when I worked in my concert venue, we normally saw kind of the majority of our purchases happen, near the on sale of our event. So, for those first couple of weeks, then ticket sales died down for a while, and then within that last month or last couple of weeks, we really saw ticket sales spike back up. So this would be an example of one of those campaigns that we ran kind of during our on sale or really approaching our event when we knew people kind of were psychologically most apt to make that purchase. Now, another campaign, and this is honestly my favorite, and why you're like, Sam, quit going on about Facebook events already. Basically, the reason why adding your event to Facebook is important to create that Facebook event is one of the most powerful tools that you can use from a campaign perspective, especially if your buyers are in the older demographic and are on Facebook. This also is one of the reasons why a lot of younger demos might still be leveraging Facebook from an event and communication standpoint. But why these Facebook events are important is you could basically think about a campaign promoting your Facebook event as the best of both worlds. If I'm not exactly ready to commit to making that purchase, I might very well just go ahead and check out your event. I might hit interested or going. Then I'm nonstop, or not nonstop, but whenever you post in the event, I'm getting notifications about the event so I don't forget about the event. And then whenever I'm actually ready to make that purchase, I can just directly buy within the Facebook event. So it's almost maybe even easier than sending them to a separate website like eventbrite.com and having them make that purchase. So I really like the RSVP ads is it's basically the best of both worlds. If somebody's not ready to purchase, you're at least getting them into your remarketing audiences. They have a higher likelihood of visiting that event, so you're growing better remarketing audiences. But if somebody actually is ready and wants to make that purchase, one extra click is definitely not going to stop that person from making a purchase whatsoever. So I would recommend, if you're kind of on the fence of, what type of option maybe should I run, I definitely would recommend maybe running one of the Facebook event campaigns. But for today's example, let's just go ahead and choose the Eventbrite event that I had created. This is, one of the webinar events that we actually have today. And within this next section, we're simply choosing, how are we going to pay for the campaign? So for those of you that are unfamiliar with Facebook advertising, the way you pay for campaigns is basically you have a credit card hooked up to your ad account. Think of an ad account as almost like a card that you use to pay for your campaigns with Facebook. So if we set a $100 budget for this campaign, that $100 budget is just going to get billed to whatever card we have on file. And for those of you that might not be familiar or might not have one of those created, don't worry, we have a lot of documentation as well to easily walk you through the process of how to get this created and set up, as it unfortunately is required for you to run Facebook ads. And then kind of the second requirement is you do need to have a Facebook page. You definitely need that to be running Facebook ads. And then an Instagram account is optional. You can run what's called like a ghost ad. So if we didn't essentially have an Instagram page, you could advertise on Instagram, but the downside is if somebody tries to click to your profile and see what's going on, it doesn't actually really lead them anywhere. So I'd recommend try to have both a Facebook and Instagram set up and linked. And this last thing, Facebook Pixel, don't worry about this too much. We actually automatically handle this. So for any of you advanced advertisers that rock with multiple, easy to choose between them. And if you don't know what it is, don't sweat it, as we're handling all of this automatically for you. Now within the next section, we're simply choosing, what's the location we want to target for our campaign. So you can enter any location that you would like to target here. It should automatically be pulling the location of your Eventbrite event. So odds are you might not even have to be doing anything in here. But if I wanted to enter in an additional market here within this section to add that in there, or country or anything like that, very, very easy to do so. Or if you're simply advertising in the US, you can actually leave the box blank and it'll default to the US by default. So some of those like Drew yourself, if you are, in the United States, maybe doing a digital event where we're not kind of bound by location, maybe advertising in the entire United States would be a good option for you. And down towards the bottom, think of this as kind of choosing like a lower bound for the age range. So, if our event is 21 and up or 18 and up, or we're serving alcohol or using alcohol in our creatives, we might want to use something like 21 and up here within this section. And honestly, y'all, you don't really need to kind of try to outsmart Facebook at its own game of figuring out what age range to target. I kind of learned this the hard way after thousands and thousands of dollars worth of A/B testing and spend. But basically, Facebook's algorithms are so sophisticated that if it kind of realizes people in a certain kind of age range demographic aren't really interacting with your ads, it actually learns that after a couple dollars of spending. So, I previously tried to beat Facebook at their own game of the optimization, but I ended up excluding people that probably actually would be likely to purchase for my events. So only thing you maybe need to worry about is just put a lower bound and you should be totally set in this section. Um, Now this next section that we have right here is the section where we are defining, who would we actually like to target from our campaign. So if we have any new faces, we got Beth, we got Surf Park, we got Drew, and we got Devin. If there are any new faces in here as well, please let me know the different types of events that you are running today, just so I can make this section have a little bit more context to you and the different events that you are throwing. So this is what you're going to see when you first jump into the platform. For any of you that have built a campaign on Facebook before, normally one of the most common types of targeting that we're working with is something called interest targeting. So we're simply just trying to target people that are interested in similar events to what we're throwing. So like let's take surf parks for example. If we're doing cooking classes, I might go ahead and just type out kind of the general theme or like interest of my event at first, just to kind of see what we could get. It's interesting that cooking oil comes up as the second thing. So maybe we could do something like cooking. Let's see if there's like virtual cooking shows. If you ever type something out and it doesn't effectively show up, it unfortunately means like, Facebook just doesn't have enough data on that. Awesome. We got Steven in here running some comedy shows. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Steven. So generally all that we are doing in here is we're, just typing out a couple different interests related to our event. So what I generally recommend is just go ahead and kind of, if you have a cooking event, just go ahead and type something out like this. We might want to do something like cooking recipes or something like that. Generally, after you end up entering in a couple in this section. Why is there only a Facebook or Instagram collaboration? Why not Twitter or other media? So, Stephen, this is actually Facebook and Instagram is primarily the one from at least an advertising perspective that we have actually found most effective for marketing events. We've tried a little bit of Twitter advertising. TikTok advertising isn't necessarily there just yet. It probably will be there in the future. So we mainly tried to focus on, the main thing that we've actually found works for a lot of event creators. So, if we don't have any Twitter advertising or anything like that, it's not that we aren't open to it or anything like that. It's just we personally, in our findings and our research, have found Facebook and Instagram to be far more effective when it comes to actual event promotion. So I hope that answers your question here. So kind of getting back to this, for our friend's example for that cooking show, we're generally just typing out a couple things here in this section, maybe targeting cooks or stuff like that. And after you have a couple interests within this section, normally you can kind of click on this drop down box right here, and it'll give you other suggestions based on what you've added in here. So maybe we want to target people interested in the culinary arts or things like that, people interested in recipes. I don't know if it's bacon or something like that, but putting in something like bacon. So normally all you want to do here is just enter in a couple kind of interests or words related to your event. And then once you have a couple in there, Facebook will actually give you some recommendations on kind of very, very similar interests here within this section. So generally, if you're running like a non-music related event or kind of a non-comedy event, you're kind of using this regular box just to enter in, some words related to your event. Let's say, for example, if we were doing like a family friendly activity or something like that, like Disney on Ice or something like that, we could maybe use something like the demographic targeting to target parents. That's a fantastic one for any of you in here that are advertising events that, kids would be attending or family friendly events. I love that parent demographic targeting as it works like a charm. But let's kind of give our comedy folks in here a little bit of an example. So we actually have an integration with Spotify to kind of help you build these Facebook interests. So when I was, working in a concert venue previously in the past, the way I handled these interests was, let's say, for example, I was advertising a Beatles cover band or something like that. I generally go to Google or Spotify, write down a list of 50 related artists to the Beatles, then enter them in one by one and find I could maybe only target like 40% of them in the first place. It probably took me like 15 to 25 minutes to just even go ahead and build this single audience, and we actually built something that should kind of do that for you within the click of a button. So this actually works if you are advertising a music related event, or even if you are advertising something like comedy. All you actually have to do is just type out like, maybe a couple common big comedians or something like that, it's actually surprising that, Spotify has a lot of data on this, and then it's automatically going to populate an audience for you of similar comedians that you could actually target there. So for a lot of, the comedy folks that I work with, like Laugh Lounge, all of the other, comedy clubs, generally what they end up doing for their targeting here is they'll simply have like one audience where they'll enter in, a couple kind of different individuals here in this section. And then once you have entered those in, you can always enter more than one. So if you kind of wanted to see if there's additional data we could pull in here, you can basically enter in kind of multiple comedians or multiple artists. And then what it does on the back end is it'll find, okay, what are all the related comedians to Chris Rock or David Cross here, and then which ones of those are actually targetable on Facebook. So for a comedy show, normally what I recommend is just go ahead and enter in a couple big comedians here. You can always get rid of somebody that you feel is out of the ordinary. So like if we didn't want Joe Rogan in here or something, we could easily X that out. And then you can also type in interests yourself manually. So for a comedy show example, what I might do is I might enter in something like comedy to target people that are interested in comedy. Stand-up comedy is another pretty common one here that we have in this section. I think it's notated that way. So generally for interest, there is no right answer of how many you should have. I'd always prioritize quality over quantity and try to use things that are relatively big. It always generally shows you how big the size of the audience is. If we just, we're in an area like Los Angeles and we only have interest that only 1,000 people are interested in, we're probably going to have such a tiny audience that it might be a little bit hard for us to reach these people. So there's no right number, but I would probably suggest, maybe try to have at least like 100,000 people in this audience or something like that. But it depends on your area. If you're, in a place that you don't have 100,000 people even in your town or within a 50-mile radius, it's also okay to just kind of target everybody in your area. That's another valid type of targeting that people do. And then lastly, we are also including a remarketing audience. So remarketing, if you're kind of working with Ads Manager or Facebook for the first time, can actually be really challenging to do. And the reason for this is you normally have to go to a completely separate location to build the audiences that you are leveraging and then incorporate them in your campaign kind of as you go along. So it's like for not only do you have to go to one place to build the audiences, but then you're having to incorporate them in a second way, which kind of takes a lot of time. So we actually are automatically including, and you can change this too if you don't want it, but we're automatically including people that interact with the Facebook page that you selected in this account section and the Facebook events that you have. So, the reason why Facebook events are so important is in that campaign example we looked at earlier where that event creator got another 500 RSVPs to their Facebook event, those are another 500 people in this campaign or this remarketing audience that are automatically targeted that already expressed interest that they would be interested in attending that event. Now, additionally, if you want to stack on kind of a couple more things here in this section, you can choose any Instagram accounts you have access to. Just to note, they do need to be what's called an Instagram business account. A little bit confusing, but it's just like a certain account type that allows you to do more powerful things like see more data analytics or basically remarket to people that visit you or interact with you on Facebook, Instagram. And then this last section is something called a Facebook pixel. For those of you that might be kind of overwhelmed about what a pixel is, I just want to kind of simplify this for you. Basically, if you've ever gone to a website, you looked at a pair of shoes or something on the internet, and then later you're back in Facebook or Instagram and you see an ad for that exact item that you were looking at, that's how remarketing works. So in a lot of cases, the Facebook pixel is just a tiny little piece of code, and we actually automate putting this on your Eventbrite event. So even if you don't know what it is, never done it before, we're doing it for you automatically. But it basically helps you remarket to people that visit any web page that that's on. So in this case, basically, if I chose my pixel, I'd be remarketing to the same people that went and visited kind of the webinar page that I had on Eventbrite. Now, just to note, things have changed and the landscape has changed after Apple's recent iOS 14 updates that have privacy changes where many people opt out of this. So even if you don't have a ton of pixel traffic, a lot of times you're still remarketing to these exact same people, as these are the same people that are engaging with you on Facebook or your events or on Instagram. And additionally, if you happen to have what's called a Facebook Business Manager account created, what we're also doing is we're automatically including an audience of everybody that's bought from you in the past on Eventbrite. We got a question from Steven. Can Boost Ads help collect emails to increase campaigns and reach? So basically, we have other tools like contesting that you could leverage in the platform that do help you collect emails. But for like an example of what you could do, like you could always run an ad campaign sending to like a page on your website where people sign up for your mailing list or something like that. But you would probably want to use like some sort of like contesting tool that we maybe have that helps capture people's emails as they go ahead and enter. Is It's mainly kind of just for the marketing aspect, but there are some tools that you can also leverage just to kind of help you collect emails as well. So great question. But to also show you, for maybe some of you more advanced advertisers, you're like, okay, really how is Eventbrite Boost actually different than just doing this in Facebook? If I switch to this advanced targeting interface, this is just a view for those of you that, want to maybe take a little bit deeper dive or are more experienced users. You have a lot more customization over everything you're using. So we're kind of looking at those same audiences. This was the remarketing audience that hit our Facebook page engagement, our Instagram engagement, that pixel traffic, and this was kind of our interest audience hitting all those comedians. Basically, we have direct integrations with Eventbrite to help you build audiences. So I don't know if any of you have heard of something called a lookalike audience before, but if you're familiar with that meme of the two Spider-Mans pointing at one another, they look the exact same, it's basically exactly what's going on. You're giving Facebook a little bit of data, and it's spitting you back a brand new audience of people in your area that are similar to those kind of in that pool that you gave it initially. So you could almost think about it that it does the same thing as an interest audience. It helps you go after, people that might be interested in cooking, but you can use data of things like people that interact with your Facebook events. And the most powerful one that you can possibly do is actually building what's called a lookalike off of your past buyer data. And the way that this works is, let's say, for example, you have 20,000 emails or you have a bunch of past buyer data within Eventbrite. If you add in this lookalike audience, what's happening is basically it's taking the data of those people whose emails match up with Facebook and Instagram accounts. It's analyzing what do those people like, what are they interested in, what are they about, and spitting you back a new audience of people in your location that are basically very, very similar to those that purchased from you in the past. And from what we've seen of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of campaigns, normally this is one of the strongest and most highest revenue generating audiences that you can use to actually go after new people. So, that's another reason too why it is important to build things like email or get your past purchasers is not only can you just remarket to those exact same people, like this group remarketing audience is retargeting everybody that attended my Eventbrite events in the past, but we can also use that exact same data to help us go after brand new people. And if I were to be hypercritical of what I had in the initial kind of simple targeting mix, it was almost like I had all my eggs in one basket. I only had one audience here that was going after new people. Odds are if I'm advertising a comedy show, I've got a lower budget, this audience is going to do the trick. We don't need to do much. But if this audience doesn't do well, we don't have another audience fulfilling that same purpose of helping us go after new people that actually might be performing a little bit better. So we've really tried to build this system out in a sophisticated way to allow you to do A/B testing. And within the next coming months, we'll actually have some more automated stuff that kind of helps do a lot of this for you. So if you're somebody that doesn't even want to worry about this A/B testing type stuff, well, we have got some really, really exciting stuff coming for you. But for an example, I could add in a lookalike of my past buyers or something like that if I wanted to kind of diversify my audience mix. And what our system does that's unique to us is every 6 to 12 hours, we see how your campaign is performing for your objective, whether that be RSVPs or clicks or sales or engagement, and we actually move budget from one audience that's not performing as well to a better performing audience. So you could kind of think of that almost in terms of a stock portfolio. Generally, you're not going to put everything on one stock unless you got a lot of conviction. It's generally a little bit better to diversify, or somebody kind of managing your stock portfolio during different times of the year with seasonality might be moving budget from one of those stocks to another stock. Exact same thing with your Facebook target audiences. You want to have some diversity to it so you can take advantage of our budget optimization that'll just help you get a better result without you actually having to pay more for your campaigns. Do any of the ad options allow you to bump your listing on Eventbrite search results? So great question there. Surf Park, right now this is just for Facebook and Instagram advertising, but we currently are trying to work on something for search listings or internal promotion within Eventbrite. So stay tuned on that. That should be coming a little while later on down the road, but we definitely hear you and we appreciate your feedback, and thank you for asking your question there too as well. So hope that answers your question that we had there. And we've really tried to build this platform out for speed as well. So I remember when I built my kind of initial campaigns, it sometimes took me like 10 to 15 minutes to build it. But as I got things down, I realized maybe I'm using a really similar audience mix for every campaign that I'm running. If I'm advertising a comedy show, odds are I don't even need to change up my targeting. Maybe I might vary some of the interests I have in here, but maybe I use these exact same three audiences for every campaign I need to run. So we allow you to kind of save any mix of audiences as a set. So if you want to go, run a future campaign, you can easily kind of pull these exact same audiences in. But what I actually did in the past was I just ended up actually duplicating a lot of the different campaigns that I'd run. So, if it only took you kind of, a couple minutes or maybe took you 10 minutes to build it and most of the other stuff is the exact same, you could kind of just go ahead and duplicate that and basically maybe 90% of the information in your campaign is the same. Maybe you're just changing up like a new schedule and a budget. Perfect. But y'all, before we jump over from the audience section, as personally, this was kind of the hardest step for me as I was just learning Facebook and Instagram advertising. I just want to take a quick pause to answer any questions that some of you might have about, target audiences or when it comes to marketing on Facebook and Instagram. Is generally if you're getting the type of campaign and your timing right and you have good targeting, those are generally like two of the most important elements. So I just want to make sure that everybody is feeling comfortable and you have kind of a good understanding of some of the stuff that we had covered here. And if you think of those questions later, please feel free to just drop in the chat. Definitely, I know stuff comes to me a little bit later on down the road, but personally, just because this was the hardest one for me, I want to make sure that you're feeling good and comfortable with all of this as well, and that if I've just been running campaigns with, just regular interest audiences on Facebook, there's actually a better world of data of audiences that are so much more likely to purchase, are so much better for driving ticket sales and engagement. Is, normally it depends on the type of event that you're throwing, but normally from our research and what we found, a lot of individuals, end up purchasing repeat times for your event. So it's always important to market to your past customers. And then, Surf Park, how does the Spotify integration affect the audience? So basically, it's think of it as like it's not advertising on Spotify or anything, but all we're simply doing is we're like entering in an artist or comedian, and it's doing that process that we would do manually of like entering in those interests. So for example, like I type in the Beatles right here, and it pulls in like all the interests of like the Beatles, John Lennon, George Harrison. If I wanted to do that manually, literally what I'd have to do is I'd have to type those in one by one. So even if I had my list written down or something like that, it would take me a while to build out that audience. So these audiences are actually the exact same thing. Normally you're using kind of the regular interest audience if you have a non-music or non-comedy event, and then if you have a music or comedy event, and generally would be building those interests off of like a comedian or an artist or something like that. This kind of Spotify integration just helps you build this Facebook interest audience a little bit faster, but it doesn't actually have anything to do on Spotify. Just kind of think of it as like a shortcut. So I hope that answers your question that you had here. Kind of the exact same thing. I personally got a little confused by it, but definitely it's just kind of a quicker way to help you generate these audiences, as it's really surprising like what you can target sometimes. Like even like if I want to target like Billie Eilish, one of the top 10 um, artists right now within the United States, the only Billies that actually show up are Billie Jean and Billie Holiday for some odd reason. So you can't target everything. So that's why we built out this tool to kind of take a lot of the hard work or the guesswork. Because I got really frustrated when I'd write down a list of like 50 artists, I'd enter in like every single one of them. Maybe I could only target like 10 out of the 50 that I wrote down. So just kind of think of it as a shortcut if you are advertising one of these types of events, just to make your life a little bit easier. But for most folks, if you are advertising like a nonprofit event or you are advertising virtual cooking shows or things like that, you're probably just using the regular interest audience. And for most of you too, you can use the simple audience mix too as well. You don't have to get as crazy as what I effectively was doing here in this section. Cool. So moving on from that, we're actually in the home stretch. So I appreciate everybody for paying attention. Thank you for asking questions. It means a lot to me and makes all of this a lot more enjoyable too as well. So thank you very much for your participation. And basically within this section, all we're doing is we're entering in like how long do we want to run the campaign, and then how much budget do we actually want to spend. So generally, when it comes to event marketing, we're not running kind of one continuous campaign from the day our event goes on sale to the day our event happens, unless it's only a span of like a week or something like that. But if you know your event, the on sale is 6 months out from the actual day of your event, it doesn't make sense to run one continuous campaign, as we'd be spending evenly throughout periods where our customers kind of fluctuate in how likely they are to actually purchase. So generally what we're doing in this section is try to use that sales curve. We'll give you a recommendation on the campaign, but just try to make sure that you're conserving your marketing budget so that you actually have enough to put behind campaigns to market, maybe as you get really close to your event when the urgency for people to purchase actually increases. So generally, like what I did when I was running campaigns within my venue is we'd run things for maybe like a week to maybe at the max like 3 weeks at a time. It kind of if you're doing like series events or things that happen every single week, you could have more like a kind of always on type of event where you might be sending people to like your event series page or something like that. But just make sure that you're reserving budget that you actually have enough to run campaigns to market to your customers when they are likely to purchase. And then question from Steven, is there a way to duplicate an existing campaign but choose a new event? Exactly. So I'll show you that actually once we finish the campaign, probably like 2 or 3 more minutes, but I'll show you exactly how to do that. Thank you for your question. And then this last section, we're simply entering in like a budget, so total budget or daily budget. It doesn't matter if you're using total or daily. It doesn't make any impact on the performance. It's just whatever is going to be easier for you personally for an accounting perspective. Personally, I find that if it's you're trying to set up something running continuously and then want to scale the budget on like a day-to-day a little bit more, sometimes daily is a little bit easier. But personally, if you're working with a fixed budget or that budget's probably not going to change too much, generally within this section, I previously kind of worked a lot with total budget, and that's what the majority of our customers work with as well. And then in this last section, we are simply pulling in, the image associated with your Eventbrite event to try to help you create an ad creative here. But I would highly encourage you guys, please feel free to delete the stuff that we have had in here. Add your own flavor, add your own personality. Everybody can kind of tell from a mile away when an ad looks like a robot, and just even take a step back to think of how you interact with social media. When we see ads that don't feel like they belong here or kind of in our face, what do? We scroll past them every single time. We only have, when it comes to social media in all reality, our attention spans are anywhere between 1 to 3 seconds. So if we're not using images or videos that kind of capture our attention, or we're not giving people context and leading them on a scavenger hunt to even figure out what the event is about, odds are they're probably not going to be that likely to actually interact with your ad, and then you might not be selling as many tickets or driving as many registrations. So I'd highly encourage you in any case where you can use video content, even if you're pulling video content from something or getting approval from somebody else to use already created video content, I would normally suggest try to use videos over images, as they're substantially more engaging than images, but a lot of our creators do kind of use both for some of their campaigns. Within the post text of your ad, this is the text that appears on top of your ad when you're running on like Facebook, or if it's on Instagram, it kind of shows up below the photo. Generally, you want to be giving people like, okay, what's the event about? When might the event be happening? And is there any sort of urgency why I might want to purchase right away for this? Let's say for example, your event's really close to selling out, or maybe you have a price hike increase for your festival tickets or something like that. That this tier of seating is going to sell out, or prices increase a little bit later on down the road. It would make sense to include that within the context of your ad, as if somebody just looks at that and you don't have it in there, unless they click to your website and go find that out, they're not going to notice that. And that's actually a really important sense of helping drive urgency to go ahead and get your customers to purchase. You don't have to do it in an overbearing or like weird way or anything like that, but just be honest and give people the main meat information that they want to be seeing at a pretty quick and digestible glance. And then link headline, generally you're just doing like what I did back in the day was like name event dash like data event or location, just kind of reiterating a little bit of that same information. And link description, this doesn't even show up on like half of the network placements nowadays, but you're kind of aiming to describe like why would somebody be clicking on my ad, or this kind of button that we have right here, which is called the call to action. That's basically what people would click on that would take them to like your Facebook event, or take them to your website or your ticketing page or anything like that. Generally, if you're selling paid tickets, you'll probably want to use the buy tickets one, but we have a bunch of other options as well. And link description normally aims to describe why would somebody be clicking on that call to action button. Now, if you happen to have a couple different images or a couple different videos and you didn't know which one was going to do better, you can actually add in multiple images or videos here in this section. Same goes for any of these other components of your ad, and actually do a little bit of A/B testing. Now, I would say, don't, please guys, don't make the same mistake I did when I first started. I immediately thought, when it comes to A/B testing audiences or creatives, more is better. So I would add like 80 variations or something crazy into my campaign. But the reason why that's not a good thing is Facebook is actually kind of splitting your budget up between all these variations. And your budget is directly correlated with how many people you reach. When we pay for an ad campaign, we're basically paying for reach. Similar to how we'd pay for a billboard and 500,000 people see that billboard in a day or something like that. So generally on average in the US, around every $10 we spend, normally we can reach 1,000 or more people. Kind of depends on the type of audience that we are targeting. But generally, when it comes to kind of that reach and things like that, if you're doing a lot of A/B testing, it's going to make it really hard for Facebook to learn what's working and then what could we actually improve on moving forward. So, guys, don't overthink A/B testing and things like that. When it comes to target audiences, if you're doing the advanced stuff, all you might need is maybe 3 or 4 audiences or even 2, depending on your budgets. And then when it comes to kind of A/B testing, if you're not working with big budgets, the only thing I'd even recommend is just A/B test the images or videos. From our findings and our research, A/B testing a lot of the different post text stuff doesn't always make the biggest difference. It can, don't get me wrong, in certain cases it can be a real good determinant factor, but in most cases it really is the image or the video that captures people's attention at the end of the day. So that's kind of what we would want to focus on here. And then if you happen to have images or videos that are more properly designed for the network placements, so let's say for example we have a nice like 1080p by 1920 vertical asset that we want to use for Instagram stories or something like that, you can always change it up in this section just so it looks nice and branded. But I know most of us are event creators and we don't have our own dedicated design team, so we're kind of working with what we have to work with a lot of times. And y'all, that actually is the last step of actually building these ad campaigns. Stephen, to go ahead and get to your question, let's say for example, we launched this campaign right now. You can also save it as a draft. I previously, when I was working in my venue, actually saved a lot of different draft types of campaigns. So let's say for example, we ran this campaign and this was for one event, and then we wanted to run a campaign for the new event, and maybe our targeting, maybe our, even some of the words in our creative or stuff was pretty similar. All we'd have to do is for any campaign, there's a duplicate button. We can simply just copy this that we have right here. All that we do maybe is you just swap up and choose a different event, or send people to a different site, or if it's a Facebook event, we're choosing a different event. Odds are the accounts aren't changing for what you're running it from. If you're a stationary venue, probably the location is not changing. If you're not throwing a ton of different types of events, you might even have the exact same targeting. Maybe all you actually might doing is designating a new schedule, a new budget within this section, and then simply just maybe changing up some of the wording or the image or video that you're using. So instead of maybe editing like these 7 steps of the campaign that we had, maybe you're really only focusing on like editing 3 of them, and then boom, you got a new campaign running in like 2 to 3 minutes if you have everything ready. So Stephen, does that answer your question, or is there anything I could further clarify on that? And guys, pretty much this is the main stuff that I wanted to talk about today as well. So just wanted to take a little brief pause. If any of you have any questions, anything I could better clarify, I am a little bit of a fast talker. I'm working on it, guys. So if there's anything I could better clarify, just please let me know. Oh, where you could change the event. So yeah, once you hit that duplicate button, it'll just be in this like Eventbrite event dropdown that you could use to choose your event. Or if it's like not necessarily that, or you want to send into your main website, you always could use this custom link section and just enter in like whatever site that you want to direct people to in this section. Awesome. Thanks for your questions too. I really appreciate it. And does anybody else have any other questions or anything we could clarify? It looks like we still have a little bit of time left here today. Yeah, honestly, man, personally for me, the duplication factor was like the best time saver. Because if most of your events have a pretty similar thing, you're not reinventing the wheel every time. So like what I generally try to do when I work with people is like, okay, let's get you to like a repeatable process where like you run 1 or 2 campaigns, you have some learnings on what's working and what's not working. And that's why I encourage things like, A/B testing in your target audiences or trying to learn the advanced stuff a little bit more is you never really know until you try. And then, if you try and something doesn't do that well, just know it's not getting the brunt of the budget as we're reallocating that elsewhere. And then we're taking these learnings to hopefully develop, or personally for you, develop a really like rinse and repeatable strategy. We got one from CESV Agency. Where does the target audience come from? Would you mind clarifying that? Just want to make sure I'm perfectly kind of understand what you are talking about. Are you referring to like, what are the types of target audiences we could hit? Just want to make sure I've got you perfectly here. Generally, at least like the main kind of data sources we're working with is either targeting people on Facebook, targeting people on Instagram, or kind of using your past buyer data. So the ad spends, the demographic pool, basically all of this is just strictly going for like Facebook and Instagram advertising. So we're just targeting people on Facebook and Instagram, but there are different types of target audiences you could use. So kind of the most basic is the Facebook interest audience, where if we wanted to target people interested in cooking or anything like that. Does that kind of answer your question? I don't think I'm understanding fully, so my apologies there. But basically, one of those is just like targeting kind of like interests. You also have we have all the custom audience options that people most normally use in Facebook, whether that's the regular one or the lookalike. So if we wanted to, maybe use data from the people that interact with our videos, maybe that view our videos and kind of use that to duplicate that, we could, try an audience like that. And then one of the most unique things, at least to our platform, that is really just like the lookalike audiences and these audiences that you could target off of your Eventbrite past buyer data. And we also do have something called smart audiences that are basically Eventbrite's own unique version of lookalike audiences. So especially if you're a new creator kind of just getting started, you don't really have a lot of data of people that bought from your events. You can actually tap into the data that we have here at Eventbrite and target people that have bought for other Eventbrite events in your area, or target, a lookalike to basically help you get in front of eyes that would be more likely to purchase for your type of ticket. So just wanted to even let some of you kind of newer users know that we basically have our own version of lookalike audiences that so far in most of the preliminary testing that we do are actually performing pretty well, in a lot of cases actually outperforming some interest audiences. So we're really, really excited about that as well. And a lot of these like past buyer audiences, if you kind of had to do this manually, what I used to have to do back in the day was I'd have to export like a nice like CSV or something like that, go ahead and upload that CSV to Facebook. That would probably take me like 4 to 5 minutes to build the audience, and then boom, I have it. So we've really just tried to design this platform with a lot of time-saving elements, help you incorporate audiences that are really hard to use, and just help you get a better budget from an optimization perspective, and kind of simplify the reporting so it makes a lot more sense for everything that you are working with. But y'all, that was pretty much everything that I had and I wanted to talk about today. We want to do one ad spend on one platform. So does Eventbrite cover all platforms? I don't want it to be so. Unfortunately, at least for you in this case, it might not be the best fit, because this basically is only advertising on Facebook or Instagram. We don't have any Twitter advertising or anything on that. But in all honesty, Facebook and Instagram is the best place to advertise when it comes to event marketing. Things like TikTok advertising, Twitter advertising, those things are better for like kind of organic marketing and things like that. But when it comes to paid marketing, in all honesty, no other digital platform has been able to really match the power of Facebook and Instagram from a targeting perspective, their algorithms, and their level of optimization. In my honest opinion, I think TikTok could be the next one that gets to there. But in a lot of cases, platforms like Snapchat or TikTok, they might not necessarily be hitting your right target demographic. Older individuals, or people that actually have disposable income to spend and attend a lot of events, normally they're on Facebook or Instagram compared to a lot of other platforms as well. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit more context too as well, just from what we found kind of in our own testing and experience. And any last questions too before we hop off for the day? I really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for taking your time and actually asking a lot of questions here as well. Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Awesome, y'all. Well, we'll give it one more quick sec, take one more quick little water gulp, and if there is nothing else, this should be it for the end of today. So thank you all for spending your time. Now you got a lot of things on your plate, a lot more fun things that we maybe could be doing as well. Do you have to log into Facebook? So you would, basically the way kind of everything works is we sync to your Facebook account. It pulls the ad accounts and Facebook pages and Instagram that you have. So basically you kind of have to do log in through Facebook. It's like the only way we can recreate Facebook's ad platform is everything actually still runs through Facebook as well. So you would kind of have to log in with Facebook. You want to make sure that you have that Facebook page, the Instagram account as well, and then that Facebook ad account to create it. And just real quick, just for a little more context on your end, if y'all just want to learn more, get a little bit more information, let me drop our help center in here where we basically have videos covering literally all this. I have, if you go into our YouTube channel and check out the Eventbrite Boost playlist section, I have videos basically explaining everything in far more context of how to get set up, how to run specific types of campaigns, how to understand your target audiences and everything. So there's a trove of information there if you just want to dive a little bit deep further. You can always run a free 14-day trial. You still have to pay for the cost of what the actual ad is. That goes to Facebook. We don't get a dime of anything like that. But if you want to test things out, we do have a 14-day free trial. So feel free to test that out. And thank you so much for your participation, your questions, everybody, and have yourselves a lovely rest of your Thursday. Appreciate your time. We'll be back here doing the exact same thing next Thursday. So something you forgot about or another question, feel free to jump in. But everybody, have yourself a blessed rest of your day. Take care.